This video is for anyone that is curious about living in New York or wants to hear someone talk seriously about the contradiction between New York romanticized image, how great it is, it's the greatest city in the world, and how much it costs, because it's gonna cost you a boot and a leg to move there, at least $5,000-6,000. And I'm not fucking kidding, because you might end up living in a closet. Or it might end up being an office that was turned into a bedroom that was turned into a closet. So I said no, and I said, fuck this city, I'm gonna leave. But I wanted to continue a previous video series that I've done on New York City gentrification, how the housing market there is symbolic of a larger problem within capitalism, which is spaces, cities, locations where there are massive amounts of wealth being hoarded due to the class divisions there. It just makes housing so much more precarious. The fact that tens of thousands of rent-stabilized apartments in New York are virtually empty. And I want to talk through some of the things that I experienced while living in New York that make a lot of the realizations I've had in the different videos I've done more and more clear. So let's dig into it. I moved to New York in 2023. And this was after a few years of living in Ohio, especially being Black and queer and growing up in Ohio. I always knew that moving to New York would be what I'd want to do at some point. And I'd been living in Ohio for a number of years. The pandemic happened, and I think the pandemic really forced me to think about, what do I want the next few years of my life to look like? I've had this intention of moving. Where do I actually want to move? And luckily, things were looking up for me in a lot of ways. I got a book deal, and I really was trying to think how I could be smart about all the money I'd saved during the pandemic. And I decided, like, if there's ever a time to move to New York, now is the time. I made the decision to move to New York. I ended up getting a residency in south of France, an artist residency. And so I remember I put all of my stuff in storage, and then I was searching for a while for a place to live once I got back from traveling. And that initial housing hunt in itself was difficult, but luckily I found a sister of a friend I had from college that was also moved to New York and knew two other people that were moving there. And so we all kind of teamed up and started looking for places together. I mainly looked at videos and photos from Zoom. If you're planning to move to New York and there are other people looking with you, I would recommend being very meticulous about how you're analyzing the videos and things that people send you, because a lot of people have wishful thinking when they're visiting places in New York, because the housing search is so fucking difficult. It's so fucking difficult. Fast forward to September of 2023, I moved to New York. I had already paid my security deposit. I think moving there, I had to pay like a good $6,000 just to like move into the apartment. I had to pay a broker's fee, 1 month's rent, and a security deposit. And I think we made like a good faith deposit. Even looking back, I'm like, why did I do this? And I really moved to New York because I wanted to experience more diversity, more culture, more of an art scene. I was very curious how New York would shift and change me as an artist. There were great things about New York, and there were not so great things. The great things about New York: there is so much diversity. There is so much to do all the time. You have so many food options, so many store options. If you're into the arts, there's endless art events to go to. And it's such a dynamic city. I love the fact that there is a city like New York where outdoor life is so demanded of you when you live there. I mean, this is why I like various parts of like Asia and different parts of Africa, or just different parts of the world, especially like Central or South America. Like outdoor shared culture, I think, is such a distinctive part of New York that I don't think I really realized I hadn't experienced in other places that I'd lived. If you are someone who is really into being stimulated and having options and being able to do whatever you want, or if you're a hedonist, New York is a great place. You can go out all the time. You can go out all the time and hate it, but you have the option to go out all the time. So there is this sort of social energy, social life there that is very amazing and cool and beautiful. But there are also issues. Immediately moving there, I think the first thing is that New York is a city that sort of, depending on the kind of transplant you are, if you're like newly out of college and you haven't really been through like some serious city shit, like New York is kind of this fever dream where people go to be a main character. And to me, as a transplant, it can look like colonizer behavior. It can look like going to a place to extract from it to get a particular kind of assumed experience. And this isn't across the board, but I take this as people moving there and feeling like they have the most diverse social circle and they're living the most dynamic life, and you still have all white friends. That happens there. People that move to New York fresh out of college and they want to cosplay poor, or they want to like look rough or act punk or whatever it is. Your family's rich. The class divisions in New York mixed with this desire to be a main character, to be at the forefront of your own narrative, it does produce this hyper individualism that I think is in contrast with a city that has so many people and so many spaces to offer. And this individualism is built into a kind of narrative like you go to New York, you have to get yours, you gotta work hard, you gotta hustle, you gotta hustle. But that narrative doesn't really speak to the amount of economic exploitation and subjugation that is in New York. There are plenty of articles out there that dive into the housing crisis there, the skyrocketing costs. Although New York has so much socially to offer, I think the class divisions define what kind of city that you live in a way that is like so intense, meaning I have friends there that I loved hanging out with, and they were also artists in different capacities. Never had any time to hang out or really do anything social because the cost of living there necessitated that you work so much. When you're not working, you have to squeeze as much into your free time as possible. And then when you're going out, what is the cost of living? I mean, let's talk about the cost of living. Like, I could go out and have a fun night in New York, start the night, six pack, $14. That's already like $5 more with taxes than New York. Oh, I want to stop and get a quick meal, another $15. Oh, you want to go to a bar and maybe get like a couple drinks, have a couple cute drinks, another $60. Oh, you want to get a late night meal, another $30. Oh, you're tired, your feet hurt, need to take a taxi home and you're in the Lower East Side and you need to get to Bed-Stuy, or fuck it, let's say you got to go to Prospect Park, $80. You could have a night out where you haven't even gotten that drunk and it'll cost you like $300. I need to pregame hard to make this worth it, or this event needs to be worth it. And that's the other thing. The cost of living in New York really forces you to be real about the kind of spaces you do or don't want to be in. There were so many times where I'd have friends where I'm like, oh, you're a little younger than me, but you're cool, you have cool friends. We go out to some fucking spot in the Lower East Side, everyone's 22 years old. I'm bored. Go out to somewhere else, like, I don't know, just, and this is tied into the wealth. Like, I, as a DIY punk, more poor person, someone who's really into just like the finer DIY things in life, I don't want to fucking go to a bar that costs $30 for a cocktail. I don't want to go to some dance night and pretend that I'm having fun while I'm listening to Charlie XCX and there's college students that pay $40,000 a year dancing all around me, living out their main character moment. And I think maybe this is really what this critique is about. It's about my hatred of the illusions of capitalism. It's about the illusions of capitalism. I think about this one time. I went to a bodega, 1 or 2 a.m. with my friends. A woman comes into the bodega, flipping out, wants food, begging for food. The workers there are being like, no, we can't, you're disturbing people. But they weren't being like antagonistic. Like, if you grow up in a city and you know the different ways that people can treat poor people, crackheads, etc., but essentially this woman was like really down and out, and it was causing a disturbance in the bodega, and in my body I was already feeling the moment. I was aware and I was thinking, okay, if they put like the workers have put their hands on this woman, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna watch the situation, and if I have to intervene, so be it. Judge every single person that lives in a city that has to like keep their guard up, because you can't always acknowledge everything that's happening all the time around you. But in some instances, to ignore something happening directly in the space that you're in because a city has socialized you into this, at some point, that does become dehumanizing. And I felt this sometimes in myself, like being on the subway or walking around, like you can't acknowledge every single person, and like someone might be begging for money and you really do believe in feeling their humanity. But New York trains you against this. You shouldn't be looking at everybody in the eye. You don't need to be looking at people on the subway. Like, and I'm not saying that New York is an unfriendly city. I did find there to be a lot of charisma and joy and friendliness in the city, along with some people that were rich and shitty and wanted to be condescending. But the amount of economic stratification mixed in with the lack of class consciousness, especially among transplants, newer transplants, I think it creates a cocktail for a city where, because New York is so strong and powerful and is so stimulating, people can begin to feel and believe that it's the center of the world. And this comes through in so many different forms of condescension that you can experience as a transplant there. And this can be condescension from people that aren't even native New Yorkers. They're newer to New York. Maybe they've lived there longer than you. And I call this the Ohio syndrome. Like, being from Ohio, the amount of times I would be at a party, the amount of times I would be at a party, and someone would say, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'd say, "Oh, Cleveland, Ohio." And they'd be like, "How did you make it out? Oh my God, are you okay? What is it like there? Is it true?" And I'm like, what do they say? What do people say? What do you know about Ohio? And the condescension always fucking got me. Because I could always be like, at least I don't live in a city where there's literal shit everywhere. At least I don't live in a city where you have to pay $1,500 to live in a box. At least I don't live in a city where the mayor is bringing in the National Guard to fuck people up in the subways. Even though there are a lot of great things. I made a lot of great friends. I connected with so many people creatively. I went on a lot of dates. I got to see plays. Like, this isn't me talking down on New York. I just think in order to even say that I really like New York, I also have to acknowledge the things that made me uncomfortable and also make it easier for me to not be rushing back. All of these things were happening, but I think all of these things are processes that people go through, things that you question when you're in a city and you're kind of like, I don't really know if this feels right, but like, you got to get used to it, blah, 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 blah. And I really do relate a lot of my dilemmas with New York to being an anti-capitalist, to being dedicated to community, dedicated to liberation. This isn't to say that being dedicated to all these things is impossible in New York, but I do think New York represents very real contradictions. Everywhere else I've lived, I've been able to organize on some local grassroots capacity kind of level. In New York, there felt like there was so much oversaturation that it felt confusing to even begin to engage in organizing, being politicized without needing to jump into like a structural organization. That unless you're literally a native and you have some good housing deals, it's gonna require you and demand that you pay a shit ton to live there. And this is some of the issue that I had with how a lot of people responded to like my TikToks about New York City housing and even the video I made here on YouTube about it. They're like, well, if you were actually smart about housing, you would have paid the broker's fee, blah, blah, blah. You're poor shaming. I get that gentrification makes people susceptible to being exploited, especially in settings where people that have lived there longer have more street smarts. But I don't think it's a valid response to, am I dumb or are landlords trying to exploit people? Like, you know what I mean? So fast forward, I'm living my New York best life. I start teaching, ha ha ha, having fun. My lease ended around August 2020, 2023. I started searching, and there are a few issues with my search. One, I had different roommate situations fall through. I didn't want to live with the people I lived with. I had one friend that I was interested in living with, and I was waiting to hear back on if her current apartment was going to be available, if her roommate was going to move out. Took that person like a month and a half to get back to me. Second person I tried to consider living with, that ended up not working out. And then the third group I found were two friends, and we started searching. And this was really when I started to realize how serious the economics when you're searching for housing is. When you are in New York City, most landlords in New York City require that a renter's annual salary be 40 times their monthly rent. So let's say you want to live alone. You want to take a studio? Let's call it a comfortable $2,000. It's probably going to be more. 40 times that is $80,000 as a single person. I don't know nothing about you, but for me as a poor Black artist, I don't even get close. And so what I realized when I was searching for housing this second time around, I realized I moved in with three white people. I moved in with three white people that weren't really from poor backgrounds. One of them had loaded parents. To be a guarantor, you have to make 80 times the rent. 80 times the rent. So if you're someone who's single, who's trying to move alone, If your rent is $2,000 and you don't make the salary yourself as a renter, you need someone that makes at least $80,000 a year. And so when you're someone that comes from a poor family, think about it. Think about it. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable. And I searched with my friends for numerous months. We each found a guarantor each. But because we were poor, we would apply to places, the people would like us, they wouldn't even have other applications coming in, and they still wouldn't accept our offer. There is so much competition that you can show up to an apartment. People will accept your tours for an apartment while they actively have people applying. People will have their applications ready, and as soon as they like the apartment, once they arrive, they will literally send the landlord or whoever the broker agent is their information. People apply to numerous apartments before they even tour them to give themselves the chance of being able to land somewhere that they might like. And mind you, every application has a fee. You're paying 20, 30, 40, $50. Do you know how mad you get when you apply to like 5 places and you get rejected arbitrarily? You've dropped like $400. The more and more I dug into this scenario, the more I realized even though I've had the most financial successful year this past year than any other time, I haven't done my taxes yet. I don't have proof. I have proof in my bank accounts, but they want your tax returns to reflect the salary that they would like to see. I'm freelance. I'm fucked. And so I kept searching with my friends, and out of all of us, I had the most strict timeline. I needed to move by the end of my lease, and it just kept creeping closer and closer. And then like the people I was searching with, like we weren't finding any luck. I think we got demoralized, and I eventually started looking for options to find places to live on my own. And this was scary to me, but I kind of thought like, okay, if there's a time to do it, I'm going to do it now. I ended up finding an apartment in a friend's building that was a studio that had access to like a backyard. And so I was like, okay, like this is a little more than I intended, but it's a decent price and it's not huge, but I can handle it. Like I don't have a lot of stuff. It's New York. Let's do it. I applied, got rejected for the apartment I wanted, but they offered me another apartment. And I was like, okay, like maybe we could do this. They sent me a video. This was a studio apartment. And let's say I'm in a room right now. It's like a small office. This was like a regular bed size room. And it had an attachment that was a bathroom. And in this apartment, you had a kitchenette and then there was like a shared kitchen. This apartment was $1,100 a month and it had no windows. I'll repeat that again. $1,100 a month and it had no windows. What do I look like? A dead body? Am I paying $1,100 to be a dead body? So many things were going through my mind. I was angry that capitalism pushes people to have to search this hard and to take crumbs. I was upset with my friends for not searching hard enough and making it more of a priority that we all find a place to live together because I was on the line. And 3, when I really reached to that point, when I saw the price and I saw the room, I thought, I didn't come to New York with clown makeup on. I'm not going to be a clown right now. I'm not going to be clowned. I'm not. So I said no. And I said, fuck this city. I'm going to leave. For me, when the universe is telling you sign after sign, I had 3 different roommate situations fall through. Couldn't find shit with these people. To me, I'm like, I have money saved. What do I look like trying to stay here when this city doesn't need me? And I work online. And I work online. And I work online. So I decided to leave. And it was it wasn't on a whim, but I feel like sometimes in life, you commit yourself so much to one path. And then when that path changes, it's almost like you have to like be as committed when you're changing direction. And so I immediately was like, I'll just move back to Ohio because going going through all of this, spending this money, being upset, feeling like I couldn't complain, having friends that I was living with that I didn't really fucking trust to be like, I'm fucking scared that I'm not gonna be able to live here and I'm mad, I'm bitter. It all just it made it an easy decision. And as soon as I started looking up Ohio housing again, in New York, for my full year there, I was paying $1,100 a month to live in a tiny room in an apartment that I didn't like. I was gonna have to pay a little bit more to live alone in a studio with no windows. Right now, I live in an 1,100 square foot, like, side of a duplex. It's a 2-bedroom duplex. I'm in an office. I have an office that is probably the size of what my bedroom was in New York. I pay $500 a month. For roughly the price of 1 month in New York, here in Ohio, I get more room, more green space in my city. It's 1/3 of the price per month. There's nothing else to be said. 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 Will I move back to New York? I don't know. I don't know. I visited New York last month and I anticipated a lot of weird mixed feelings. I anticipated being very sad to go back, like, oh, I'm gonna miss it, blah, blah, blah. Actually, when I went there, I was like, I'm crashing on couches in small ass apartments. Everything is expensive. There's cops everywhere on the fucking subway now. You can't even fucking jump to the turnstiles easily in so many places. And it just really kind of solidified, like, I want to live a life where I have the things I need to have community, have space, and write, do my work. And to live in a city that is both familiar and new to me, mostly familiar now, that lets me do all those things with minimal work per week. It's just so easy. Like, as soon as I moved back here, I went on a 6-week trip to Asia because I just could, because my cost of living here makes that possible. This video isn't by any means to dissuade anyone from moving to New York. It's to really give you my very real emotional and economic and political considerations. I think New York is an amazing city. Back, I'll always visit when given the opportunity, even though I skipped a chance to visit it right now. But if you want to move there, you should. You should. Just save your money before. Save your money. See you next time.